Are you disappointed with the way your animal drawings are turning out? If so, you're probably making just a couple of fundamental mistakes in your process. In this video, I've broken my whole technique down into 6 stages. The last one, that's probably going to be a game changer for you because it's showing how to put light haze over a dark black background. Now, obviously you're not going to be able to draw fantastic animals after just one video on YouTube, but this video is there to try and take away the confusion on the process and how to even get started. So let's jump right in. Now, the first thing I want to do is do a good quality print on a good quality photo paper, okay, because this is what I'm going to copy off to do my drawing. Now, obviously you could use a tablet or an iPad or something instead, but I like to do it on paper and I like to print it off the exact same size that I'm going to do my drawing. It makes it so much easier. Next thing I want to do is transfer that drawing over to my pastel matte paper. Now, I'm using a cheap paper for this print, cheapest you can get, okay, and then white transfer paper. White on the inside, that's what I want to put down under the print and go against the actual pastel matte paper. Now, I use a cheap paper just because it's nice and thin when I do my tracing. So I just lift up the paper, put the transfer paper underneath, and I'm all ready to start transferring. Or of course you could also draw freehand. And I'm just going to transfer using a ballpoint pen. And the reason for that is simply because it just shows up so well. If I used a pencil, you wouldn't really be able to see the lines very easily on there. Just put a couple of dots in the corner so I know where the frame or the edge of my drawing is going to be. So when that's finished, I can just remove my magnets. I hold it in place to start with and just pull the tracing back and just make sure all the lines are there that I want to be there. Once they are, I know I can just remove it. Now, for this particular guinea pig lesson, I'm using PanPastels for the underlayer, and in the middle I've just got some normal printer paper, just cheap printer paper, and I'll use that as my mixing area. Now, you absolutely don't need PanPastels to do drawings. You can use your pencils on the side like I'm showing here and then just blend it in with a paper stamp, and I show that technique on lots of videos. Now, PanPastels are wonderful because we can mix the colours together. Okay, so I'm just dipping into the PanPastel. In the middle I've got just regular cheap printer paper. I'm going around, as you can see, in a circle, and then don't forget, test your colours on scraps of paper. People jump past this stage all the time. It's something I teach because I want you to be able to draw anything that excites you, and the way to accurate colour is by testing them. You put them on the scrap of paper, that scrap's got to be the same colour as the paper you're using for this to work, then match it up against your reference photo and see how close you are. Then make adjustments. Do you need more red in there? Do you need more brown in there? Mix it, as I said, like kind of like oil paint, and then retest it again, see how you've got on. This is a real fundamental thing I can't stress enough to do. So I continue that process on my underlayer, and as I said, this time I'm using PanPastels, mixing on the right. And the very nature of the PanPastel tools push it down into the pastel matte paper, so I don't need to do any further blending. Now, on this underlayer, you want to go dark enough that your lights will show on top. Okay, now that's another one of those fundamental errors that I see beginners make. They don't go dark enough on this underlayer. Now, there is an exception to this underlayer being dark enough, and that's when the area needs to be very white or light, just like on this guinea pig's body. You can see on the reference photo it needs to be really light, but there are also some grey tones in there, just slightly darker than the white. So what you don't want to do is put something dark over the whole body, because it's really difficult to get that pure white back on top. Now, it's good to fairly early on to put something dark in the drawing as well, so you can see your full tonal range from the very bright highlights to the very darkest areas. And on this drawing, that dark is really the background, and you can see as I'm putting it around with the pencil gives me a bit more control. It's instantly making the guinea pig's outer area stand away from the background. Now, when we're doing details, the next thing I do after I've done the underlayer, that basic colour, is to put in the dark areas, so the shadowy areas in between the highlights on the fur. Now, a fundamental mistake again, and I was doing this a lot when I first started painting in particular, was thinking that the darks are always going to be grey or black or dark, very dark brown, and they're not. It depends on the light that's around, and you can see on the reference photo that this particular fur on the guinea pig is kind of a gingery colour. The darks are really a darker brown, darker red in there. Now, the massive benefit we've got with pastels is we can put light on top. We can put our highlights on top of the underlay and on top of the shadow as well. And that really is a very, very big advantage. But something to keep in mind. Highlights, just like darks and shadows are not always blacks and dark browns, highlights are not always white. Many, many beginners go for white for their highlights. But as you can see in this section, it's really more of a light orange. If you're doing dark backgrounds and you're drawing on a slanted board, do what I've done. Turn the drawing upside down. Any pastel dust is going to fall down and not go on the drawing. Okay, the last thing I want is for that black pastel dust to go on the body. Now, if you want the background to be really black, pencils are not going to do it. They won't go dark enough. PanPastels definitely won't go dark enough. They're not completely opaque. This is an instance when you need to use pastel sticks. Just rub it on the surface, make sure you've got plenty on there, and then blend it in with your fingers to get a lovely dark rich black. Now, how do you get white haze without the black contaminating? You do what I do. You get a microfiber cloth. Each time you put a hair on, you bring it back and wipe the tip of the pencil. This is in real-time speed, okay? I've not sped this up. That's exactly as I was doing it. Otherwise, you're going to get black contaminating in from that background onto the area where you don't want it. So that's a brief overview of my drawing process. Now, how about a lesson on drawing really realistic fur?